Throughout history, Māori have engaged with international systems to protect their rights and assert their self-determination. From the signing of He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti o Waitangi to modern-day participation in the international trade system, Māori have always played a crucial role in shaping both domestic and global policy. In this video, we'll explore some of the history of Māori involvement in international agreements, why we've engaged with the world, and how Māori have influenced global policy from both here in Aotearoa and on our many adventures abroad. Before we begin, let's take a moment to understand how the world works together. Countries often make agreements with each other to set rules about things like trade, human rights, and protecting the environment. These deals are often made through big organisations like the United Nations or the World Trade Organization, groups made up of many countries. One key area for Māori has been trade, where countries decide how to do business with each other. These deals can include things like taxes on goods, rules about investment, and protecting intellectual property. There are also global rules that talk about human rights, the environment, and indigenous rights. These international deals can be very complex, but they definitely influence how countries behave. For Māori, being a part of these agreements has been a way to make sure our voices are heard, not just in New Zealand, but all around the world. To understand Māori international engagement, we have to go back to before colonisation. Māori had their own relationships and protocols long before Europeans arrived. Whānau, hapu, and iwi had established systems for negotiating relationships, resolving disputes, and forming alliances. And all of these interactions were governed by things like mana, tapu, pawa, and tikanga. By the early 19th century, when the number of Europeans in Aotearoa started increasing rapidly, Māori had already been engaging diplomatically with the outside world. In 1835, Rangatira from the north made a huge step and signed He Whakaputanga, the Declaration of Independence, which was formally recognised by the British Crown. This declaration asserted that sovereignty resided with the chiefs and hapu, creating an important foundation for future international relationships. 5 years later came Te Tiriti o Waitangi in 1840. While the English version claimed to transfer sovereignty to the British Crown, the Māori version, Te Tiriti, promised to protect Rangatiratanga, or Māori authority and self-determination. For Māori, Te Tiriti was never about ceding sovereignty, but instead about affirming it whilst creating the basis for Europeans to be here in Aotearoa. When Māori stood up for their tino Rangatiratanga, they were saying they had a right to make their own decisions, even with other countries. But the Crown didn't keep the promises made in Te Tiriti, and it took away the right from Māori when making agreements with other countries. As colonisation intensified through the 19th century, Māori kept fighting for their rights. Some even travelled to England to talk directly to Queen Victoria. One notable delegation in 1884 was led by King Tāwhiao, who sought to bypass New Zealand's government and speak directly to the British Crown about treaty violations. But unfortunately, in the end, they didn't get to meet the Queen. By the early 20th century, Māori were looking to newly formed international bodies. In the 1920s, T.W. Ratana travelled to England and Geneva with a petition signed by over 30,000 Māori. Ratana sought audiences with both King George and the League of Nations, the world's first global political organisation established after World War I. He wasn't given a full hearing, but the trip showed that Māori saw the value in talking to the world to fix injustices. This approach, looking beyond New Zealand's borders for recognition of Indigenous rights, would become increasingly important in the decades to come. Following World War II, in which many Māori had fought, the global landscape began to change. The United Nations was established in 1945, and gradually, global ideas like human rights became more common. At home, things were changing too. Many Māori moved to the cities, which brought new problems, but also led to more activism. Groups like Ngā Tamatoa rose in the 1970s, inspired partially by civil rights and other resistance movements across the world. In 1975, the Waitangi Tribunal was created to look into treaty issues, starting with limited powers, but it grew over time. By the 1980s, a new challenge emerged: trade agreements that could impact Māori rights without their input or consent. In 1983, New Zealand made its first free trade agreement with Australia, without including any treaty protections. As the country became more focused on free markets, Māori worried their rights were being ignored. How could Māori protect Rangatiratanga in this new globalised economy? In 1990, Dal Wihungi of Te Rarawa and Moana Jackson of Ngāti Kahungunu attended an Indigenous Intellectual Property Conference in New York. Soon after that, the landmark Y262 claim was filed with the Waitangi Tribunal. Often called the Indigenous Flora and Fauna claim, it was actually much broader than that, challenging the Crown's policies that were taking control away from Māori over all their taonga, including language, cultural expressions, and traditional knowledge. As the Y262 claim was being developed, Māori were also creating their own forums for engaging on issues with Indigenous peoples. In 1993, the first international conference on the cultural and intellectual property rights of Indigenous peoples was held in Whakatane. This conference, hosted by tribes of Mātātua, brought together Indigenous representatives all over the world, resulting in the Mātātua Declaration, a document that asserted Indigenous peoples' rights to control their cultural and intellectual property. The declaration was later presented to the United Nations, representing Māori leadership in the global Indigenous rights movement. In 1995, New Zealand joined the WTO, and Māori warned this could harm their rights. Some lawyers tried to change our treaty-making laws to protect the Treaty of Waitangi, but Parliament voted it down by just 2 votes. By 2000, Māori pressure led to a Treaty of Waitangi exception in a trade deal with Singapore. It was meant to protect Māori rights, but many Māori said it didn't go far enough, because it only protected the government's right to provide more favourable treatment to Māori, which is not a full protection of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. A big moment came in 2007 when the United Nations adopted the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, or UNDRIP, after more than 20 years of development. The Declaration recognised Indigenous peoples' rights to self-determination, lands, resources, and cultural heritage. However, only 4 countries voted against it: the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. New Zealand's government claimed the declaration was incompatible with the Treaty of Waitangi, a position many Māori found ironic and deeply disappointing. In 2010, after a change in government, New Zealand finally endorsed the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, though with qualifications that it would be implemented within New Zealand's legal framework. The following year, after 20 years of hearings, the Waitangi Tribunal released its report on the Y262 claim, titled Ko Aotearoa Tēnei, or This is New Zealand. The report found that current laws and government policies fall short of partnership, instead marginalising Māori and allowing others to control key aspects of Māori culture. While the report gave some good ideas, it didn't go far enough for many Māori. In 2014, the Waitangi Tribunal made another groundbreaking finding in its Te Paparahi o Te Raki report, concluding that Māori did not cede sovereignty to the British Crown when signing Te Tiriti in 1840. This finding challenged the very foundation of the New Zealand state and had profound implications for how Māori rights should be understood internationally. Meanwhile, on the international stage, signing on to new trade deals continued to be the main focus of the New Zealand government. When the TPPA negotiations concluded in 2015, it represented the most extensive trade agreement New Zealand had ever entered. Many Māori were concerned. Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei led a massive march of up to 25,000 people to protest against the agreement. Even though the US later pulled out, New Zealand joined the new version in 2018, the CPTPP, and Māori still had concerns. In 2020, an important development came through mediation in the Y2522 claim, which led to the establishment of our organisation, Rangatiratanga, a Māori entity designed to influence trade policy and protect Māori interests in international agreements. Today, the work of Rangatiratanga and others like us show that concerns about the global trade system haven't gone away. In fact, they've grown. As trade deals become more digital, more complex, and more far-reaching, Māori continue to push for a real say in how Aotearoa engages with the world. On a more positive note, Māori are also pushing to change how trade is understood completely by working to incorporate more relational ways of trading that acknowledge the importance of protecting our taonga and practices. From he whakaputanga to the protests against the TPPA, Māori have always been involved in the international agreement space. Our role in shaping global trade, human rights, and Indigenous protections has evolved over time, reflecting our ongoing commitment to sovereignty and cultural preservation. As we look to the future, the lessons from this history are very clear. Protecting Rangatiratanga requires vigilance at both domestic and international levels. It requires building alliances with other Indigenous peoples, whilst also engaging directly with states and international organisations. Most importantly, it requires remembering that Te Tiriti o Waitangi in itself was an international agreement, one that truly envisioned Māori maintaining their rangatiratanga in a changing world. If you would like to know more about the work that we do, or even get involved, please go to our website, ngatoki.nz,